Une fois de plus, bonsoir à tout le monde. J'espère qu'après la pause, santé et les esprits et les corps seront plus alertes pour suivre la conférence qui va nous être donnée. Et la conférence nous sera donnée par Monseigneur Fortunatus NWACHUKU. Monseigneur Mosé, au début de son intervention, disait que le Nigeria était très important, très grand, pour ne pas dire le plus grand en Afrique au point de vue population. Monseigneur Fortunatus nous vient du Nigeria. Je vais faire économie de son enfance, de son parcours scolaire. Vous dire simplement qu'il a été nommé nonce apostolique après avoir fait l'académie pontificale en 2012. Et pour cette raison, il a reçu l'ordination épiscopale le 6 janvier 2013. Il a commencé sa carrière diplomatique comme nonce en tant qu'observateur permanent du Saint-Siège auprès des Nations Unies à Genève. Il a ensuite été au Nicaragua comme nonce apostolique. Il a terminé en tant que nonce aux Antilles, les différentes Caraïbes. Et c'est en 2023 qu'il a été nommé secrétaire du préfet du dicaster pour l'évangélisation. Du point de vue profession ou graduation, il a essayé de se spécialiser en Bible, c'est un bibliste. Il a fait également la théologie dogmatique. Il a aussi essayé de goûter au droit canonique. Et comme vous le voyez devant moi, il ne fait pas partie de cette catégorie de canonistes qui font 3 ou 4 ans de droit et après passent leur vie de travers. Donc, lui, il a fait le droit canonique et il passe sa vie de manière droite. Donc, c'est sur cette note que je vais laisser la parole à son Excellence lui-même de nous dire ce qu'il a préparé. Le thème de son intervention, ce sont les tribus, un défi pour l'Église catholique en Afrique. Tribes, challenge for the Catholic Church in Africa. Excellence, vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much. This morning I began by speaking in French. Maybe now I begin by speaking in English. And I would like to reiterate my gratitude to the organizers of this meeting for inviting me to take part in this meeting. I wish to thank the abbot who has welcomed us here. And of course, coming here, I came not just as Fortunatus individually, I came as secretary of the dicastery for evangelization. Je suis arrivé comme secrétaire du dicaster pour l'évangélisation. Ce n'est pas pour moi une visite privée. Et alors, ce que je vais dire aussi, il y a des choses qui représentent aussi ce qu'on fait au dicaster. I'm not just going to be giving a private conference. Some of the things I will be saying will be drawn from some of the things we are doing at the dicastery. Don't mind. He said I began my service as nonce to the United Nations. That was my last station. I was named Apostolic Nuncio in 2012 to Nicaragua, and I spent 5 years in Nicaragua as Apostolic Nuncio. And then from there I was sent to the Caribbean. I spent 4 years in Trinidad and Tobago and the whole of the Antilles. And then from there I was sent to Geneva as permanent observer of the Holy See to the United Nations. It was a return to the place I spent a good time as a young secretary counselor at our mission to the United Nations, taking charge mainly of the theme of human rights. That is why the things said about human rights touch my heart. From Geneva, I was sent back to the Secretariat of State in 2006 to take charge precisely of the desk for human rights, which I did for 1 year, and then I was made head of protocol of the Secretariat of State. So I've been around quite a bit with regard to the diplomacy of the Holy See, and I'm sorry if what was said this morning about human rights and the church touched me, and I had to come to tell our colleague here that I wasn't agreed. Some of the things he was saying did not correspond to what I knew, because right from the earliest times, the position of the Holy See on human rights could be summarized just in 3 things: human life, human dignity, common good. And they are all based on the Bible, from the Bible. All the others, the Las Casas, all the other movements, they all came from the Bible. Even distributive justice, Exodus chapter 23, 24, 25, all of them, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The law of Hammurabi, distributive justice. The new thing that Christianity brought was Jesus speaking in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20. If your righteousness, your good doing, your dikaiosune does not go beyond that of the scribes and Pharisees, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And then from there, all the way from verse 28 to 48, Jesus goes to show the new dimension brought by Christianity. But that is not my topic. My topic is tribes and the challenge to the Catholic Church. Les tribus est le défi qui représente pour l'Église catholique. Les autres qui ont parlé beaucoup de défis à l'Église catholique aujourd'hui. Je ne vais pas lire tout ce que j'ai préparé pour ne pas répéter ce que vous avez entendu. Je vais parler en anglais et je vais parler sur ce point l'Afrique et l'Église en Afrique. L'Église en Afrique aujourd'hui, ce qu'on appelle l'Église des Gerbes, l'Église des Gerbes. Oui, ceux qui me connaissent savent que je parle avec des codes. Je vous laisse avec un code. Le code 1, 2, 6, 6. 12, 66. C'est un texte biblique. C'est le texte de Psaume 126, verset 6. C'est le retour des exiliés de Sion. Le verset 6, je vais le lire, c'est le concept aujourd'hui de l'Église. Il dit, il va en pleurant, portant la semence qui répond. Il revient avec chant de joie, portant ses gerbes. Et c'est à partir de ce texte qu'on parle aujourd'hui de l'Église des gerbes. Et dans quelle façon sont les tribus, constituent les tribus aujourd'hui? Un défi pour l'Église. Et quelle est la réponse du christianisme? La réponse qui vient de la nouveauté que le christianisme nous porte. Ce que le professeur Mbombo a pratiquement résumé dans les 4 fidélités. Fidélité à la culture, fidélité à l'universalité, fidélité à l'évangile, fidélité à la modernisation. Merci en français. Je retourne à l'anglais. My text is going to be developed along these titles: Africa and the Church in Africa. The church in Africa today, the church of the sheaves. The church of the sheaves. That is the church today in Africa. And I present it as a code. Please try to keep this code. Code 1266. Or you can call it code 1266, which is the code of Psalm 126 verse 6, which is a psalm that speaks about the return of the exiles of Zion. When the Lord delivered Zion from bondage, it seemed like a dream. The 6th verse says, they went out full of tears, carrying seed for the sowing. They come back, full of songs, carrying their sheaves. The church of the sheaves. I will tell you in a second what that means. And what are the challenge? And how are the tribes a challenge to the church of the sheaves? How is Christianity responding to that challenge? Especially with the novelty that Christianity brings. The church of the sheaves. We wouldn't have African church today if we did not have those great heroes that came from Europe. They came from the West. They left their homes at the prime, the most beautiful moments of their lives. They abandoned their families. They abandoned their peers. They abandoned comfortable lives. And they left for unknown places. Places where they knew quite often there was incurable illnesses, sicknesses. And they knew that some of those who went before them had died, some of them surviving only a few months. And still they went, thinking about them. You ask yourself, were they crazy? Were they mad? Yes, they were mad. Mad in love with the gospel, with the people they wanted to bring the good news to. And let me tell you, this was a time that we did not have the current day means of transportation. So when they went, for them, they didn't think of coming back. Their families did not think of their coming back again. So their going was like dying. You can imagine the amount of tears that fell from their faces and from the faces of their family members as they left. They go forth, full of tears, carrying seed for the sowing. What seed were they carrying? The seed of the gospel. Thanks to God, the seed that they sowed caught up. They have grown. The plants have grown. They have borne fruit. And today we have the sheaves. Look at me and one of them. Look at the bishops here. Look at all these Africans here. We are the sheaves. We are the product of the sacrifice of some missionaries. Michelle was telling me yesterday that some time ago we had about 30-something thousand Belgian missionaries in the world. Now, call a Belgian today, ask him whether those people were all stupid. But today you see the fruits of their labor. Anytime anybody in Europe or the church in Europe treats a product of the young churches with discrimination, you know what that person is doing? That person is dishonoring the memory of the sacrifice of those great heroes, the missionaries. We should keep that in mind, always. They are the heroes of our faith. People are saying, oh, we're now coming to re-evangelize Europe. That is nonsense. We're not coming to re-evangelize Europe. Europe has been evangelized. We are coming as a fruit of the sacrifice of these missionaries. We are coming to share, become family of the mothers that gave birth to us in faith. We don't want to say fathers, because sometimes fathers are jealous of their children. Mothers are not jealous of their children. So that's why we think of the churches, the missionaries that gave birth to us as our mothers in the faith. And we are coming back. This is the moment to open up arms and welcome the fruits of the missionaries. Somebody tells me we have crisis in the Catholic Church. We don't have any crisis in the Catholic Church. Crisis of vocations, we don't have any crisis of vocations. I took down here, I don't want to read it. I brought with me the summary of the statistics of the church in recent years. I give you, by December the 31st of 2021, the world population was 7.7 billion people, about that. It had an increase of 118 million people. By December date, 31st December 2021, the number of Catholics in the world was equal to 1.37 billion Catholics in the world. 1.375 billion Catholics in the world. And there was an overall increase of Catholics, 16,240,000 Catholics. Increase, not decrease, of the Catholic population. The increase was highest in Africa, where we had 8,312,000. This was by December 31, 2021. So we don't have any crisis of population of Catholics in the world. What then do we have? We have a demographic redistribution. A redistribution of Catholic population in the world. You're going to ask me, why do we have the demographic redistribution? Tell me, if Belgium were still to be filled with priests and religious as it was, say, 50 years ago, tell me how many of these Africans here would easily be welcomed into parishes. The fact is, when the Lord wants to make you pass through a hole in the wall, He closes the doors, He closes the windows, and forces you to start knocking on the wall to discover the opening on the wall. And that is what has happened. The Lord is not yet done with Europe. The Lord is not yet done with West. When the West has learned how to integrate and accept the church of the sheaves will come to make the trunk to grow again, and there will be a new flourishing of Christianity in the West. I am very convinced about it. The Lord is pushing the West into a learning process. That is an introduction. Now, if we have the church of the sheaves coming, and that is coming from Africa, is coming from Asia, is coming from Latin America, how are they going to make themselves acceptable? We're talking about the Church of Africa. I'm not talking about the church in Asia. We deal with them. As the Castro first section for first evangelization and new particular churches, we deal with a total of 1,130 circumscriptions. That means dioceses and their equivalents in the world. Quite a lot. Most of them are in Africa. But when we talk about Africa, which Africa am I talking about? Many people think immediately of sub-Saharan Africa, because for them, North Africa is not Africa. Is that true? Is Egypt Africa? I've heard so many people tell me, no, Egypt is not Africa, Egypt is Arab world. Let me give you something very provocative. What is the thing that makes Egypt what it is? The pyramids. Please tell me which other Arab country in the Gulf has got me pyramids? If the pyramids are something that came of Arab ingenuity, why would it only be in Egypt? You would have had it also in the other Arab countries. Now go down a little bit, see that the pyramids go down southwards in Egypt. When you get to Ethiopia, go and see the churches that are carved into rocks and mountains. You are going to tell yourself that it is the same ingenuity that builds such impossible structures inside mountains and valleys that could have conceived pyramids. Why were they not done in other parts of Africa? Because the other places were humid, rainforests, and they could not have survived. But other things were built. The Great Wall around the Benin City, in the southwestern part of Nigeria. Go to Timbuktu. You see the great walls that have been there for thousands. We had all these ingenuities, and people have dared to tell us Egypt is not Africa. It is Africa. The movement of the people brought people, yes, from the Arab world to Egypt. We have to be careful. If you tell the people that Egypt is not Africa, then you'll be telling them that we have Arab occupiers on African land. I don't think that the Egyptians would like you to call them Arab occupiers on African land. Now, when we say that, we are saying, yes, North Africa is Africa. It is true that North Africa was so close, is so close to the Mediterranean, that the Roman Empire, when it grew, it spread also to northern part of Africa. So much so that some people also in Europe, they like to claim that all the good things in northern Africa, around Hippo, Annaba, and all those places, Carthage, that they are not Africa, they are Europe. Oh my God, poor Africa. Everything good. Somebody from outside would like to claim it. But I'm talking about about sub-Saharan Africa now. The church in sub-Saharan Africa is on its third missionary journey. The first missionary journey was the one that lasted almost 500 years. From the very first beginning, there is even a pre-Christian journey of Christ into Africa. When he ran to Egypt, he was being threatened. He ran away from Herod and was protected by Africa. Don't you think that is what the church is doing today? Christ again is running to Africa, being threatened by the new Herod, Western relativism, the so-called modernization. And Christ has run to Africa. And people are telling us to abandon the things that we learned from the heroes that died for us in order to embrace things, concepts, that have not realized anything. Let me tell you, the Europe that we know, the society of Europe that we know, was built on the principles that the missionaries brought to us. So, why should I leave those principles to embrace new ideas and ideologies that are now being invented by the new European generations and that are trying to sell the new ideologies to us? No, I prefer to embrace and stay with the teaching of that person that was ready to die for me and my people. Last year I went to Guinea Conakry, and I went to the place Bofa, where they have their national shrine. I went to the cemetery of the missionaries. You wouldn't believe it. It was full of tombs. When she arrived, she was 28. I see death, she was only 31, 3 years. He arrived, he was 32. 9 months after, he was dead. He just went on. The cemetery was full of young Western missionaries that came. I also criticize my fellow Africans or others who have the courage to come to attack these people, saying that they came to destroy our culture. You can tell me, even today, which teacher is perfect? There are people that make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We cannot focus on the mistakes of missionaries and forget the great things that they did. So now is the moment we bring back. We come to show you, Mama, I passed the exams. Here is my certificate. We have come to produce, to contribute to the work in the house. Please receive us. Don't shut us out. Yes, we have challenges in our trying to come back. One of those challenges is called tribes. I'm not going to start defining tribes for you. I have a number of definitions here. But I can only tell you that people don't like the expression tribe because it makes them to feel they are still in the past, undeveloped. I prefer the expression ethnicity. Ethnicity is one of the markers of plurality of people. This morning, I spoke to you about the fact that plurality belongs to human nature. I even went to the Bible to show you how that is drawn from the creation narrative of Genesis chapter 1. Now, plurality has markers. One of them is tribe or ethnicity. In some places they speak of race, but these are all markers of plurality. In themselves, they are innocent, they are neutral expressions. They become good or positive, negative, depending on the use we make of them. When ethnicity is twisted to become ethnocentrism, it becomes bad. That is when a person presents his belonging to a particular ethnic group as something exclusive, granting him special or her special rights, which that person denies other people. That becomes a problem. But I'm Russian. Ethnicity is not something peculiar only to Africa. All peoples have got ethnicity because the word, the Greek expression, ta ethnos, belongs to, it means people. A group of people, ethnic group. When it is in the feminine form, ethnos is a group of people, is people. Ta ethne, which is a feminine form, is used for foreigners, foreign nations. When people know how to manage the toi ethnoi, the various peoples living together, they become a source of beauty. And that is, you see it in those countries that have been able to maintain a balance among their ethnic groups. You think of India, for example. India alone has got a population bigger than that of Africa. It has got more ethnic groups than practically all Africa together. And India is able to manage them. Of course, with difficulties. We don't have perfect situations. We may also say the same thing with other big countries, Indonesia, Brazil, China. They have been able to somehow manage. Why? What helps managing the ethnic configuration is the arrival of the new nation-state configuration. With the new nation-state configuration, ethnic groups came together to form new states and established rules and laws. So one way to go beyond the challenge of ethnocentrism is the rule of law. In Africa, that is not easy to reach. Why? Because the modern nation states we have in Africa did not come from Africans. They did not come from voluntary unions of various ethnic groups. They were imposed as a result of some foreigners sitting somewhere and partitioning the continent according to their interests. So people, I go to Nigeria, you see that half of the Yoruba ethnic group is in Nigeria, the other part is in Benin. You come to my part of Nigeria, you see that we have parts of people in my ethnic group. You see some of them near Malabo, another part you see them in parts of southwestern Cameroon. You go to the north, you have the houses spreading across Nigeria to Niger, and then to Niger, and then to Chad, and so on. Shall we go backwards? No. What can we do? We have to find a way of trying to go and do some bit of sanatio of the mistakes that we have inherited. Can we do that? Yes, it is possible. Somebody has done it. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. He did it in Tanzania. Tanzania, with its numerous ethnic groups, we don't have great cases of tribalism in Tanzania. I'm not going to go into that. We have also other countries in West Africa that have been able to go beyond, maybe based on cultural issues. Mali, Burkina Faso, they have it, but not as acute as you have in Nigeria. The danger comes when people attach, go to hang on to one of the elements making for ethnic groups, and that is attachment to a piece of land. Of course, they speak of common ancestry. When people go and attach themselves onto that and exclude others, we have difficulties. We have cases. He is named Bishop. No, he is not from my place. We are not taking him. He is named Governor. Oh, no, he is not from my place. We are not taking him. But if the military come and with their gun, they impose a governor on you, even if it's not of your ethnic group, you accept it. So we respect the guns more than we respect our faith. Is that so? Archbishop Nkea spoke here about the Pentecostals. The Pentecostals are able to succeed because they do something. They are able to go beyond that challenge of tribe with what they call the new tribe. Their way of reading the Bible makes them to take seriously the thing that belongs to us, to me, and to you. Rebirth. They call it born again. Is born again a Protestant concept? It is our concept. Why do we abandon it to them? The fact is that for the Christian, the whole Christian life, for you to gain eternal life, you must be born again. You must go beyond the exigencies, the limitations of the tribal birth. Without going into details, just think of them. This thing is repeated in the New Testament. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 23. Your new birth, not according to the flesh, is in Christ. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17. If you are in Christ, you are a new creation. The old has gone away, a new life has begun. No longer according to the flesh. John chapter 1, verses 11, 12, 13. He came to his people, they did not receive him. But to those who received him, he gave them right to become children of God. Not according to human blood, not according to the wish of the flesh, but directly from God. The novelty that comes from Christ. Are we able to embrace it and see that we are really new people? St. Paul, writing to the Ephesians, was even stronger. Ephesians chapter 2, just take verses 1 and 2. He says that the old life in the flesh is over. And then from verse 11 all the way to verse 19, he tells us that Jesus Christ has used his blood to break down the walls of division. The walls of division. So that, in verse 19, you are no longer strangers, but members of the same household. This is the word that the first African synod presented for the church. Household of God, the church as family. Are we able to live it in Africa? If we are really family, we have had cases 30 years in Nigeria. Now we are battling with a place in Congo, and they are referring to cases in Nigeria and Sierra Leone, which are totally different. And I'm telling you they're totally different because it is on my desk. They have been offered things offered to those of Nigeria, and those of Nigeria were ready to accept. We just say, take this, give us a year or two, we shall put things in order. They said, no, it must be the way we decide. Just on the basis of the tribe. We don't want to go beyond it. Is that Christianity? We want to be like Jesus. Now, I like to ask people in catechism, where was Jesus born? Jesus was born in Nazareth, no? Huh? Jesus was born in Bethlehem. And the parents of Jesus, where were they from? Bethlehem, Judah. And Jesus, after he was born in Bethlehem, he grew up in Galilee, in Nazareth, and in Capernaum. Why don't we call him Jesus of Bethlehem? We call him Jesus of Nazareth. What does Jesus want to teach us? I take another step. I challenge priests. And with this, I'm going to conclude. This is a major challenge we have. Because wherever you have this problem of ethnicity rearing its head and resisting, go and dig. You have one or two or three priests behind it. Our lay people are more open. They are mainly our priests. So, I ask them, which priesthood have you? The priesthood of Aaron or the priesthood of Melchizedek? I was preaching to young people. I said, now after your ordination, you are going to be rejoicing. They sing to you. Tue sacerdos in eternum secundum ordinem Melchizedek, Melchizedek. And they are finding themselves. I asked them, so who is Melchizedek? Where was he from? Which was his ethnic group? Which was the tribe of Melchizedek? Let's go back and read Hebrews chapter 7, verse 5, verse 3. Hebrews 7:3 says Melchizedek. He had no father, he had no mother, he had no human genealogy, no beginning, no end, but like Son of God, trying to tell us that once you are ordained a priest according to the order of Melchizedek, your life can no longer be according to the human genealogical priesthood of Aaron. Any priest you find who is playing the theology of ethnocentrism, of tribalism, tell the person that that person is a shame to the priesthood according to the order of Melchizedek. Thank you very much.
Une fois de plus, merci à Monseigneur Fortunatus Fortunatus. Merci à vous pour votre attention. Je crois qu'il n'est pas besoin de dire que maintenant nous ouvrons la possibilité à des questions. Questions pour compléter ce qu'il a dit ou des commentaires pour compléter ce qu'il a dit. Questions pour avoir des éclaircissements sur ce qu'il a dit. Et questions pour l'aider encore à ouvrir l'horizon s'il était sollicité à donner le même enseignement à d'autres groupes. Donc je vous laisse la parole. S'il y a des gens qui veulent intervenir, je leur donne la parole avant qu'il y ait un résumé en français. C'est pas prévu.
Les étudiants qui parlent français viennent de partir.
D'accord. Voilà. Vous avez la parole, Moses.
S'il n'y a pas de questions, moi j'en ai une. Je peux déjà composer. Merci beaucoup. Merci, Excellence, pour votre présentation, surtout dans sa deuxième dernière partie, qui nous interpelle et qui, sur la réalité des tribus en Afrique, dans l'Église d'Afrique, que nous vivons comme une blessure du christianisme, une blessure de la foi chrétienne. J'aimerais qu'on puisse peut-être aller plus loin parce que les étudiants qui viennent de partir, ces questions, ça revient et ça scandalise. Est-ce que la démarche ou la dimension d'en parler sur les bases théologiques de la foi, est-ce que vraiment ça suffit? Ne faut-il pas prévoir d'autres mesures?
Je peux vous dire que ce n'est pas simplement une question pour parler. Je peux vous donner un exemple. Parce que moi, je suis de l'opinion de parler franchement. Si je me trompe, je reçois la correction. Alors quand je suis arrivé au dicaster, j'avais cette question. On a tout de suite pensé aux sanctions. J'ai dit non, pas aux sanctions. Il faudra chercher de voir s'il y a une approche pastorale. On a envoyé premier évêque bloqué. On a envoyé deuxième bloqué. J'ai dit non. Il faudra leur dire clairement qu'ils sont des prêtres. Je suis prêtre, je comprends. Alors, on a pris aux consciences, au cœur, ce qu'ils disent. On va donner la solution. Mais il faudra faire le premier pas, commencer, et puis je vais donner maximum un an parce que la question pour nommer un évêque, ce n'est pas une chose, on dort, demain on sort, c'est fait. Mais allez commencer, donnez-nous le temps nécessaire. J'avais commencé à prendre le temps, les contacts, les personnes étaient allées à l'annonciature, des concrets, des pas concrets ont été proposés, paraît qu'ils acceptaient. Et il retourne à la maison, c'était tourné de nouveau. Alors quand ça arrive, les évêques disent, mais regardez, on a dit que monsieur n'accepte plus. Dans ce cas, on avait présenté les possibilités qu'on n'avait pas présentées dans les autres cas. Et finalement, on a parti au niveau d'investigation. Il faudra dans ce cas de commencer à appliquer la loi de l'Église au niveau des sanctions. Alors ce n'est pas simplement question de pour parler, il y a quand même la loi de l'Église. Mais l'application de la loi de l'Église, selon la loi même de l'Église, devrait être l'ultimisme, la toute dernière option. Et quand on arrive là-bas, ça veut dire qu'on a tout épuisé des autres possibilités. Si on fait un autre pas, ce ne sera plus l'Église catholique.
Le professeur essaie de vous le parler. Je vais d'abord voir combien de personnes peuvent parler pour pouvoir bien fou. 2, 3, 4, Moses. Non. 4. Oui, madame.
Merci. Merci pour votre conférence. J'ai bien aimé, Monseigneur, vous parler ici, ou vous avez parlé, to accept the chiefs come to Europe and that the world puts now the West into a learning process. Cette phrase pour moi est une phrase vraiment très très importante. Nous sommes, also je suis allemande, en Allemagne on a beaucoup de paroisses, vous le savez, où nous avons les prêtres des différents pays d'Afrique, bien sûr aussi de l'Inde, mais il y a aussi une grande part de prêtres religieuses d'Inde. Mais ma question est comment maintenant vous voyez cette mission, parce que je pense que c'est une perspective aussi de mission. Et nous avons aussi, soit au nord, soit au sud, on doit aussi critiquer la mission ou les pratiques de la mission, etc. Comment vous voyez aussi je ne le dis pas dans une perspective coloniale ou en tant que professeur allemand, etc. Mais je le vois aussi desde la pratique, c'est-à-dire c'est une approche aussi missionnaire, interculturelle, où on a besoin aussi la langue, le langage, connaissance, etc. Mission et la missiologie nous a appris depuis le 19e siècle que c'est l'important aussi. Et il y avait aussi beaucoup d'erreurs à cause on n'a pas eu ça, oui. Et pour ça, ma question aussi, votre perspective, j'ai bien aimé aussi, vous avez parlé des martyrs, c'est-à-dire aussi les martyrs, on le sait, depuis Stéphanus, depuis Stéphane, etc., Esteban, et aussi les martyrs de l'Église, c'est ici aussi le sol ou le fondement de l'Église. Je l'ai bien aimé, mais en même temps, l'autre partie aussi de le martyr, c'était une société ou un procès colonialiste, colonisateur. Also pas les missionnaires, je le dis, mais les missionnaires étaient venus avec les colonisateurs ou les conquistadeurs, etc. Et c'est quelque chose aussi, je pense, cette violence. À partir du Sud, on a beaucoup d'approches post- ou décoloniales, etc. J'aime bien aussi la littérature, je ne suis pas connaisseur, mais je connais un peu, par exemple, Chinua Achebe. J'aime bien the novel Things Are Falling Apart. Pour moi, ce roman, pour moi, c'était pour moi un apprentissage de cette perspective de mission à partir du Sud. Et ma question, vous n'avez pas mentionné cette perspective, Monseigneur. J'ai bien aimé. Alors c'est ça ce que j'ai dit depuis le commencement. Vraiment bien aimé votre thèse principale. Nous sommes dans un procès d'apprentissage et aussi le martyr. Mais ces questions aussi critiques, qu'est-ce que vous pensez? Merci.
Le micro, là.
Merci, Monseigneur. Moi également, j'ai aimé votre approche. Et ma question va aussi dans le même sens que Madame qui m'a précédé. Quand vous parlez là, je pensais justement sur un compagnon que nous avions dans la compagnie de Jésus, permettez-moi le pléonasme, c'est Fabien Eboussi-Boulaga. Il a étudié, il a fait la crise du Montour, il a écrit aussi Christianisme sans fétiche. Alors il a parlé justement de ce que Madame vient de dire, que beaucoup de missionnaires, en fait ce n'est pas tous les missionnaires, mais beaucoup de missionnaires apportaient avec eux les colons. Alors ils étaient ceux qui faisaient la couverture d'un certain temps de choses criminelles ou même de dépersonnalisation des Africains. Et c'est pourquoi il est abouti à une conclusion que la compagnie de Jésus est une communauté ouverte qui permet que la raison et puis la critique soient faites, que la pensée libre fonctionne, mais l'Église est encore fermée avec cette pensée. L'Église ne permet pas la pensée critique à ce moment où Eboussi parlait. Alors il dit, il arrive à une conclusion que comme la compagnie de Jésus se trouve dans l'Église, moi je ne suis plus en mesure de continuer à être jésuite. Et il a quitté. Donc il est mort, je crois, 2 ou 3 ans. Mais Fabien Eboussi-Boulaga est mort en dehors de l'Église. Et donc, je voulais savoir, quand vous le dites, j'ai apprécié votre perspective, mais il n'est pas trop positiviste que nous oublions un peu d'autre part, parce qu'aujourd'hui aussi, il y a tout un discours sur l'injustice contre le colonialisme. Il y a des perspectives, il y a des œuvres qui défendent que nous devons parler des bienfaits du colonialisme et non du problème du colonialisme. Parce qu'on n'aurait pas des États, par exemple, si ce n'était pas les colons. Mais vous l'avez souligné, comment on a divisé les pays en Afrique et les problèmes des tribus, de culture et tout ça que ça pose. Et donc, je voulais un peu vous entendre sur ce point de vue. Merci.
Professeur, c'est là.
Merci. J'ai suivi avec un certain intérêt votre discours. C'est vrai que vous passiez de l'anglais au français. C'est une bonne chose d'ailleurs. Vous avez parlé des tribus, les tribes en Afrique, les tribus en Afrique. Je ne sais pas si à ce stade on peut constater que les tribus impactent positivement ou négativement le christianisme en Afrique. Je pense qu'il faudrait nous le préciser. Et puis, je vois qu'en Afrique, aujourd'hui, je suis de temps en temps en débat, en confrontation avec eux. Il est né un groupe que nous avons identifié comme les néo-panafricanistes qui attaquent le christianisme de front. Ils ne s'en cachent pas. Ils disent que nous avons abandonné la religion de nos pères pour épouser la religion des étrangers. Ils le disent avec une éloquence, j'allais dire imparable, mais nous résistons un peu à ces discours-là. Ils veulent absolument la mort du christianisme dans notre continent. Ils disent que ce n'est pas notre religion. Bien. Par rapport à ce courant de pensée, qui est quelque peu dévastateur, au nom de la culture tribale, je ne sais pas ce que vous en pensez, n'est-ce pas? Voilà.
Est-ce que je peux au moins couper? Je cherche The first person spoke about the learning process that the West has to embrace now. It is true that it is not easy for you to come, maybe you are a teacher and you mentor a student, and the student comes and becomes so intelligent, so competent, and that they bring the student back to your school, and they tell you the student is going to be your assistant to teach the same thing you are teaching, and you know that this student has grown, has become an expert, might even outshine you. Many professors would do everything to keep that student away. If it is a mother, the mother will bring the student and tell everybody, oh, this is my child, you know. Listen to my child. I'll let my child talk. Envy will give way to pride of being the mother of the child. So I think that the West needs also courage to be able to live this moment of the church of the sheaves. So on the part of the West, we expect the courage to behave, to assume the true mentality of the courageous mother who welcomes her child or her children with pride and brings them into the family and gives them the freedom to flourish in the family. On the part of the children, and that is the one you talked about. You spoke about things fall apart. And the experience, the negative experience of the impact, the coming of the Western culture. I doubt there is any people I know today that has not have, in the course of its history, experience of some form of colonialism. Please just tell me one. In Europe, think of the Vikings that came from the north. Ireland of today. Think of the Great Britain and Ireland. The Austro-Hungarian Empire and other parts of Europe. Think of Sardinia coming into Italy, northern Italy, the current Italy as we know it. We have had populations moving, taking over, imposing their cultures, the Greek culture. Think of Alexander the Great. So we should stop staying here and weeping and crying over spilled milk. Tell me what we could have lived through in Africa that is worse than what the Jewish people went through during the exile, when they took all their big, valiant men were taken away, all their things were destroyed, and they were exported to Babylon. Have we forgotten? Psalm 137, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat and wept, remembering Zion. How could we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? After so many years, they did not stay back. They flourished wherever they tried. They resisted. Why can't we do it in Africa? Why must we stay there, weeping, licking our wounds? Ireland did not stay back. Weeping, we can go beyond that. Now, these are things of history. We say they have happened. Let them not happen again. But we were not the first to experience them. I pray that Africa be the last to experience them. So I like to be critical in my thought. Et ceci aussi me porte à la réponse pour mon ami le jésuite qui a abandonné. Malheureusement qu'il a abandonné. Quand j'avais 7 ans, j'ai vécu la guerre plus horrible du siècle passé en Afrique, la guerre de Biafra. J'ai perdu mes amis de mon âge. Et grâce à Dieu, j'ai survécu. Imaginez-vous si j'étais resté là pour vivre l'aine. Non. Au contraire, j'ai commencé à chercher de développer la théorie de l'embrasse contre le préjugé et la division. C'est à cause de cela que nous sommes chrétiens, savoir utiliser la bonté pour défaire les choses négatives. Oh mon Dieu, qu'il a quitté les jésuites. J'étais en pas de devenir jésuite moi-même, on m'avait accepté. J'étais à Francfort. Mon professeur me disait, Fortunatus, oui, cherche de terminer rapidement ta thèse. On va te prendre dans la province sud de l'Allemagne. Là, mon évêque m'a envoyé à l'académie diplomatique. C'était une décision pas facile pour moi. Et je vois notre jésuite qui est abandonné. Il faut avoir le courage de rester et prendre en main la situation pour la changer. C'est à cause de cela que nous avons Jésus-Christ qu'on peut changer. Les tribus peuvent partir positivement ou négativement. Ils partent positivement. Les tribus donnent l'appartenance. Tribes can impact positively on a person. They give you the sense of belonging. And that is something positive. Even Jesus, he needed people close to him. The sense of belonging comes from tribe. Yeah. But Christianity gives us the possibility of creating a new tribe. What makes you belong to a tribe? The place you are born, the context in which you are born. And Jesus comes and preaches a new birth. Nicodemus, John chapter 3, verse 3, verse 5, especially verses 6 and 7. No? Unless you are born again, unless you are born above, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. What is born of the flesh is flesh. That is level 1. But what is born of the Spirit is spirit. And so what is born of the Spirit, he says, is a wind. Spiritus says, we feel it, but we don't know where it is coming from or where it is going. That is the way of those who are born of the Spirit. They are no longer attached to ethnocentrisms. The new birth in Christ should make us members of a new tribe. We call the tribe of Christians, a new people. Thank you.
Il était prévu une table ronde à 18h. Il est déjà 18h20. Or, dans ma liste, il y a encore 3 personnes qui ne sont pas intervenues. Est-ce que ces 3 personnes pourraient ramasser leurs questions sans commentaire Et je vais demander au modérateur, au conférencier de répondre sans commentaire.
Alors, je m'associe aux éloges et aux remerciements des personnes qui m'ont précédé. Merci beaucoup pour votre brillant exposé. Je suis le frère Olivier Marissa, je suis père abbé de Kormoussa au Sénégal. Alors moi, je voudrais vous parler justement du Sénégal, en rebondissant sur la question de la division des pays. Avec la conférence de Berlin en 1985, et on a vu les conséquences dans notre propre pays. Vous savez, il y a un pays qui divise le Sénégal, qui s'appelle la Gambie. Et il y a quelque chose qui nous touche, c'est que les Gambiens et les Sénégalais ont la même culture. Ils partagent la même culture. Malheureusement, on dirait que l'Église continue à, je dirais, consolider cette division, puisque la Gambie ne fait pas partie de la conférence épiscopale du Cap-Vert, Sénégal, Bissau et Mauritanie, mais il est loin à Sierra Leone et au Libéria. Alors je me demandais, je m'adresse au secrétaire de la dicaster pour l'évangélisation du peuple, est-ce qu'on ne pourrait pas rectifier l'histoire et permettre qu'il y ait cette réunification, ce que les colons ont fait, que l'Église puisse le rétablir. C'est seulement ça. Merci.
Thank you very much, Your Grace, for your presentation. My first question is a little bit outlier in the sense that I'm commenting on the happy comment that you said that we don't have a crisis of vocations, and that is wonderful. The thing is, I'm wondering about family vocation.
Sorry?
Family vocation.
Family vocation.
On the continent, especially of Africa, we seem to really have serious problems with families, especially families from low-income settings, a lot of divorces, a lot of people unable to participate fully in the life of the church. And I'm just wondering whether that crisis isn't, it's producing in addition a lot of broken young people, children, etc. So in a way, we may not see a crisis right away, but possibly we encounter a future crisis. And should this become a very serious pastoral priority for the Catholic Church in Africa? But my other question, which is very short, I don't actually have enough background about Nyerere and the process, possibly of canonization or something. Given the problems we have with leadership on the continent, with tribalism, with various, and with family, etc., is there a way to expedite the elevation of Nyerere as an example for our people, so that we don't have so much alienation? Thank you.
Pardon, derrière, vous avez demandé la parole.
Merci de m'avoir vu aussi. Alors, je voudrais poser une question par rapport à ce que Son Excellence a dit sur les missionnaires. J'aborde un peu la question un tout petit peu dans le sens de la dame à côté. Refuser qu'on fasse une évaluation de ce que les missionnaires ont fait comme pratique religieuse chez nous, c'est un peu se voiler à mon humble avis la face. Toute pratique religieuse nécessite une évaluation, et l'évaluation doit être négative ou positive. Personnellement, je ne me sens pas en dette vis-à-vis des missionnaires. Je ne me sens pas en dette, si tant est vrai que l'évangélisation est constitutive de l'Église. C'est-à-dire que c'était de leur devoir de répandre l'Évangile Et cet évangile nous est parvenu, tout comme c'est de notre devoir aujourd'hui, comme chrétiens, de continuer à répandre cet évangile. Monseigneur, je voulais vous poser la question de savoir qu'est-ce que vous pensez exactement de la nouvelle évangélisation. Les missionnaires, pour moi, ont fait leur travail. Ils ont rendu service. Nous, aujourd'hui aussi, nous rendons service. Et ce que nous disions d'eux hier, ils font la même chose aujourd'hui ici. Si vous demandez au diocèse qui nous accueille, par exemple, pour actualiser la chose, comment se comportent les prêtres africains venus en Belgique, en France, ils vous diront quelque chose. Donc ils évaluent eux aussi l'apport que nous avons pour leur Église. Donc c'est normal pour moi qu'il y ait une certaine évaluation. Merci.
Merci. Je commence directement avec cela. Absolument, je suis totalement d'accord. Il faut faire l'évaluation. Ce que j'ai fait était simplement de souligner le côté positif. Et je l'ai dit tout de suite que personne n'est parfaite. Moi, j'ai critiqué des missionnaires qui avaient aussi exagéré dans des choses. Les missionnaires qui s'étaient trompés naturellement. Moi, je suis en train de défendre nos Africains qui sont ici contre des préjugés qui sont là. Mais je ne peux pas critiquer seulement la façon inadéquate d'accueillir les Africains ici, pendant je ne critique pas la façon quelquefois pas facile d'accueillir les missionnaires qui étaient arrivés en Afrique. Il faut savoir qu'aujourd'hui, on a déjà une relation, on a déjà des connaissances directes ou indirectes entre les Européens et les Africains. Quand les missionnaires étaient partis, il n'y avait aucune information antérieure, il n'y avait aucun contact antérieur. Ce matin, le Père, Son Excellence Monseigneur NWACHUKU avait parlé de l'évaluation psychologique de l'inconnu. L'inconnu nous porte souvent la peur. Et nous ne savons pas comment réagir. Et dans cette situation, on peut tromper. Oui, je suis en faveur de faire l'évaluation de l'œuvre et des œuvres des missionnaires. Mais s'il vous plaît, qu'on le fasse dans une façon contextuelle, dans une façon équilibrée, pas anachroniste, parce qu'on commence à les juger par des valeurs. Les valeurs d'aujourd'hui sans prendre en considération la situation de leur temps qu'ils avaient trouvé, qu'ils avaient vécu. Et je suis sûr, oui, vous avez raison, il faut faire l'évaluation. Crisis in family. I'm sorry if I did some overgeneralization by saying that the church does not have crisis. Of course, we have points of crisis, but we don't have crisis in the number of membership generally. That's what I mean. And we don't have crisis at the level of priestly vocations or vocations to religious life. Numbers, I mean. But of course, we have crisis in the area of family life. We have crisis with regard to relationship with other religions. We have crisis. Well, of course, crisis, we know what it is. from the Greek word krinein, which means to judge, something that confronts us and makes us to take a decision. So yes, we do have crisis, but I was referring to only demographic data. And then Nyerere, if it were in my hands, I would just declare him even beatified tomorrow. But it's not in my hand. They're the bishops of Tanzania who are going to take it up and do what is necessary. When it comes to our dicastery, if I'm still there, I will do what belongs to the dicastery, because I believe that a saint is somebody we should put on a standard for people to see as a guide on what to do. With regard to this question of ethnocentrism, a question of tribalism, I think that Mwalimu Julius Nyerere is an example we have to put on the standard. The final one, divisions, Senegal, Gambia. I repeat what I said before. I don't want us to be there just crying about what we received, inherited from the missionaries. Somebody even, when I was in the Caribbean, some journalists attacked me because I said I am not in favor of financial, what do you call it, not remuneration, financial paying back, restitution. I said that I was not in favor of it. It was like I touched the worst bomb. They came after me. I said, excuse me, maybe you have good governments here, so that if they give you the financial money, the financial restitution now, they will use it in making better the life of the people. With the situation we have today in Africa, go and get the West to give Africans billions and billions of dollars as restitution. You know what will happen? The money will come to Africa today, and they give you 1 month. The whole of that money will come back to banks in Europe. And the West will have washed its hands clean. The next time you talk about colonialism, they will tell you, stop making noise. We have paid you. So instead of talking about restitution, we should be talking about better collaboration. We tell them, let them understand that we are hurting from their mistakes. And there are many Europeans and Westerners who know, who admit that their people made mistakes. So we don't ask them to give us money. We ask them to help us to heal, help us to get this over. And we have people also that were divided. I give you an example. Tyrol. They find themselves divided. Parties in Austria, parties in Italy. They have not killed themselves. Austrian Tyrol has developed. Italian Tyrol has developed. At the ethnic level, they collaborate. At the national level, they collaborate with their various nations. Why can't we do it? With regard to reorganization, internal ecclesial reorganization, once we get the proposal from the Episcopal conferences, I say we because I'm here today. Tomorrow I will be gone, another person will be there. I'm sure that if the proposal is presented in a very clear, organized way, it is going to be taken care of. The point is that quite often, the Africans are not always present. And when a fellow African tells our Africans what to do, they either get annoyed and say, why not I say that to us? But a white person will tell them that. It is going to become, gospel truth. When I came, I started looking at things and I started saying what were being said. I said, I know these people. These are people I know. I'm going to tell them the truth. And let me tell you, there is something I can say to a Jew that you, a European, you cannot say to a Jew. If you do it, he is going to accuse you of anti-Semitism. If I do it, and he wants to accuse me, I will be the first to accuse him of racism. If you want, I've done it already. There's not a book that came out on racism recently, and I wrote on introspection and so on. There I spoke of Arab racism, I spoke of Jewish racism. I didn't even need to write it. I wrote about my experience when I went to language course in Jerusalem. I spoke of my experience when I served in Algeria. So the same thing, where I am, there are things I say. I tell my people, you are not African. You are not African. Don't say this. If you say it, they are going to see it as insult. I am from Africa. I'll be talking to my brothers. So I say the things as they are. My fellow brothers Africans, will they accuse me of colonialism? They will not. You may accuse me of being Nigerian. These Nigerians again have come with their juju. I make sure I don't say it like a person with juju. So, no, I am in favor. I tell you, yes, the division, the reorganization in Senegal can be done. And if it comes while I'm still there, if the Lord leaves me there, I don't know for how long, then I will support it. If I'm not there, the person that is there is certainly going to support it. Thank you very much.
Le pape Benoît XVI nous a appris à vivre une année de miséricorde. Et le pape François nous a appris à vivre une année de miséricorde. Je vais donner la parole à M. Mikeya.
Your Excellency, I just wanted to come on something you started and you said. Something you said a little casually, but which for me is very important. You shared your experience working in the Commission for Human Rights in Geneva, and you disagreed with some of the points that were presented in the morning. What I want to say is that normally, except the things have changed in this meeting, when we do this colloquium, we always publish the acts. And therefore, I think it will be important for you to kind of talk with the speaker so that we don't publish the wrong things. Because we're going to publish these acts and they'll be circulated all over. And this will be coming from a conference which is organized at this level. It's a high-level conference. And whatever is said would be seen as the basis, as truth coming from authorities. And it will be quoted. So if there are points which you completely differ with, flowing from your experience and what the church's history has put, it is important that it goes into the acts of this conference as the reality of what was said here, or the reality of what has been the church's tradition. Otherwise, if we put in the wrong thing, it will go all over. We do that every time we have this colloquium. We publish the acts. And I think I just mentioned that because you said there were things you did not agree with, and you explained how the church has been involved from the very beginning. Everyone is limited in their view, and probably the speaker may not have gotten into these details, which will be important to go into his talk, so that when we put out the acts, we have the right perspective, and people can quote us and will not be afraid. That's just a remark I wanted to make.
Okay, I just tell you, I speak about human rights, anybody who goes into the internet, because while I was in Geneva, I know that EWTN was interviewing me almost every month. Each time I did a presentation at the Conference of the United Nations. And there were all sorts of things about the diplomacy of the Holy See, the origin of rights and such things. Now, the use of the word human rights is not the same thing as the origin of the concept human right. The rights belonging to the human being by nature, not by agreement, negotiation. They flow from the nature of person as God's image and therefore sacred. And so that's why I said for the Holy See there are three main fundamental elements: human life, human dignity, and common good. If you look at the three of them, the presentation said that it was social agreement first, and then also you find it in the Bible. I think it is totally the other way around. Human rights first, you get it in history as we know it, recent times, from the Bible. Man, a human being made in God's image and likeness. The proof for that is going to the main hall, the traditional hall of the Conference on Disarmament at Geneva. You look at the roof, you are going to see the writings that underlie the founding of the conference and even the founding of the United Nations. And there are verses taken from Psalm 8. Oh Lord our God, how great you are through all the age. You have made them little less than a God with glory and honor. You have crowned them, and so on and so forth. Verses of that psalm are all over the place on the roof. And then you check the 10 Commandments, as we call them. Exodus chapter 20. Thou shalt not kill. Forget the first part about God. Take from the fourth. Thou shalt not kill. Everything is about the regulation of the relationship between you and your neighbor. Respecting your neighbor, respecting your neighbor's life, respecting your neighbor's property, respecting your neighbor's wife, and telling the truth about your neighbor. Now, the only thing you are going to find outside the biblical tradition is the thing you find in the law of Hammurabi. And that is what we call distributive justice. And that is something that was already there, even outside the biblical tradition. That is the basis of the positive law we have in different countries. What we call, philosophers, we call it distributive justice. And the best way, the highest level I know that philosophy has gone in trying to receive distributive justice is in the theory of John Rawls. Justice as fairness. You know, you just detach yourself and imagine if I were to be the person. And that takes us back to the rule that we find in Exodus chapter 21, verses 22, 23, 24, 25. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. You know, leg for leg and so on. That is, you give it to me, I give it to you. And it was even used, this equity was so basic at that time that it got into the definition of human relations, even to the application of love. Many people don't know that love your neighbor like yourself is not Christian. It is Old Testament. It is Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. So Christianity came and took human rights to a different level altogether. In the Old Testament, it was normal to kill. People now, human rights people come and say they are fighting capital punishment. Where is it coming from? From the Bible. Thou shalt not kill. But killing another person because that person has offended to level up, that was accepted in the Old Testament. But with Jesus, no more. Because with Jesus, it is no longer Old Testament. It is now John chapter 13, verse 34 and verse 35. I give you a new commandment, no longer loving like yourself, but loving like I, Jesus, have loved. So Jesus becomes the center around which everything rotates, and that is human rights for the church. Saying that the church did not recognize, did not believe in human rights, no. Even during the French Revolution, what the church condemned was not human rights, but was the way it was applied. Summary executions, killing of people. Is that human right? We understand, even today with the development of human rights, we are told that one right finishes where the other begins. So, one right finishes where the other begins. And even people, let me tell you this now, I almost got into trouble with regard to the Ukrainian war. Everybody was saying the right of Ukraine for its territorial integrity. I said, correct. I am totally in favor of that. Please, there's also another international law, another right in international law. The right of a people to self-determination. So please go and see whether we have had the meeting point of those two rights. Now, the role of the Holy See with regard to human rights. The Convention on the Abolition of Anti-Personnel Mines could be reached because of the engagement and the work of the Holy See. We were there. Before I left, we began another attack to make sure that an agency for artificial intelligence is created, as we have for nuclear atomic energy agency. That one has not yet materialized, but we are pushing. We are not members, but we have persuasive powers. So anybody, the people that attack the church come from outside and say, oh, the Holy See is against human. How is it possible? How could we be against human? Of course, if we have incongruences, we attack them. For example, I'll give you an example. How can a person come and be fighting at the United Nations for the abolition of capital punishment imposed on criminals, but that person at the same time will be fighting to grant to some persons the right to kill the most innocent of human beings, the being that is not yet born, that has not done anything to anybody. So if you are fighting for the abolition of capital punishment, you will be on the front line also to fight for the abolition of abortion, which is the slaughter of innocent human beings. But you have people that are on the opposite sides, calling that human rights. When I was in the Secretariat of State, I was preparing our report on the rights of the child. And I got the committee on the rights of child to report on the killing of girl children, girl pregnancies, female pregnancies in India, and they wanted it condemned. So the reply of the Holy See, I prepared it. I don't shy from saying that. The question, are you condemning it because it is a child that is being killed? Or are you condemning it because it is a girl child? If it is because it is a female child, then it is impartiality. So tell us why you are condemning it. They never replied to the query of the Holy See. The following year, they removed it from the recommendations of the Committee on the Rights of the Child. Now, these are some of the things that the Holy See does. I'm saying the things I did. Other people did their own. Of course, I could stay here and go on and on. I worked at Geneva for 4 years, 3 months as secretary. And I followed the negotiations. And then from there I went to the Secretariat of State, 1 year in charge of the desk of human rights, and then I was sent back also as permanent observer to the United Nations. So I think I can say, pardon me if I say it, I'm not trying to sound anything. Yes, that I know something about human rights. Thank you.
Dans son œuvre Le démagogue, le malhonnête, après une intervention de ce dernier, l'auteur chinois avait dit que toute la salle s'est mise debout pour couvrir l'orateur d'applaudissements. Je voudrais que dans un dernier élan d'applaudissements, nous disions merci à Monseigneur Fortunatus.
Merci beaucoup.